Hello and welcome to the Lawful Remedy, episode 7. Can't believe it's 7. It's a live show with you, the audience, watching, and a wonderful panel waiting to answer your questions. They are known as the Clever Clogs because they're brainy and I'm not. Looking after the panel and the questions is Karen Dodd. Karen, are you there?
I'm there. I'm here. Hello.
Hello, Karen. How have you been since last week?
Yeah, I've been good. I've been very busy. I've been chatting to some of the clever cloths and I've been walking the talk with the council. So I've been taking some of the advice and doing the work. So I can't wait to hear what what I'm going to receive through the post in the next few weeks.
Oh, that sounds very exciting.
But
Or
yeah,
not. Or
yeah,
worrying.
I know. Well, I think that's the thing. We've got these amazing people that are coming together each week on your show, giving us this
Yes.
information, and the whole purpose behind it is so that it can encourage the public to walk the talk, to take the initiative, and be in their sovereignty. So I thought I've got to do it, haven't I?
You definitely have. And just as an update then on my situation with the wretched enforcement agent, they keep sending me texts. I can't seem to block their numbers. I try, but it keeps coming up saying number is invalid. So I don't know how they managed to get round that on mobile phones, but they never arrive. So I'm very pleased about that. So it's just, never ending load of old hassle. But so far I've still got the van. Anyway, it's not about us. It's about you, the lovely audience, and of course our wonderful panel who's going to come to your aid. Just to remember, this is not legal advice, so don't take us to court over anything you hear. Remember to do your own due diligence and, think about the things that come forward, of course, because that's what we're here for. It's purely entertainment, as they say. Karen,
Yeah.
who have we got on our lovely panel tonight?
Tonight, Richard, we have three lovely guests. So we've got a female joining us, the lovely Donna Lee, if she wants to say hello. Hi, Donna Lee, and just give us a little bit about your background. Are you there, love?
I think she's disappeared. She's fallen off the panel at the
Want to
moment. So
make a cup of
hopefully,
tea? Not, we'll come back to Donna Lee then. So then
yes.
we've got a new chap who's joined the Clever Clubs called David. Yeah, I'll call him David. He's going to introduce himself again. He's from spls.pro and he wants to actually have a few words about what he's been doing and where he's at. So hello, David. Are you there? Are you there, love?
I am indeed.
Oh, good.
Yes. Yes, thank you. Yes, thank you for that. Jeremita is the family name. It's hard to say. David, son of Jeremita, man like Dave. Two Daves on the show. I prefer David, to be fair. I don't want my name to be circumcised. So my mum called me David, and that is what I answer to. But yeah, it's all good. Thank you for having me.
It's nice to have somebody whose name hasn't been circumcised. I've not heard it quite put like that before. I saw Dave, allegedly Dave, who's on the panel as well, smiling at that, which is great fun. I love your background, David.
Thank you. I think it's quite apt for the topic and where we're going. So at some point, I would like to spend 10 or so minutes introducing myself, a bit of background, what we do, where we've been, and some history. It should be a bit of entertainment and beneficial for everybody. I've been in the game 10 years. We teach now about equity and the propositions of equity along with trust law. And we use the King James Bible version 1611 authorised to obtain lawful remedy for legal controversies or controversies surrounding the name. And I think it will be useful at some point once everybody's introduced themselves and for me to be able to field questions. The area of the knowledge that we use is the Bible references, and I'll explain that later. But I'm not here as a Christian or to besmirch or to preach Christianity. It's a fact of the matter, and it will become apparent throughout the show as we proceed. So I yield. Thank you.
Brilliant stuff. And just bear in mind, of course, we're trying to get through as many questions as we can. So the audience, please ask as many questions as you can. We'll try and keep the answers as short because I've had a few emails from people saying, "Oh, it got a bit self-indulgent and we couldn't hear you all talking amongst yourselves." And of course, the show is really aimed at at the audience. But back to Karen for our next panelist.
Yeah, so our next panelist is allegedly Dave. He's happy to be called Dave. You don't mind being circumcised with your name, do you, Dave?
I prefer it, actually.
I think we should leave that one there. But allegedly Dave has been on the panel before. Would you like to say hi?
Oh, yeah, hi. Yeah, Legend Dave here. Yeah, been in the game for about, 18 years now. So, I specialise in keeping people out of those court places.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
And I'd have to say, Dave, I do love the new studio look and the microphone. It looks fantastic, you know.
I look really professional, don't I?
You do, because the last time you were in China or somewhere?
I was in Hong Kong, yeah.
In Hong Kong, wow. Yeah, get around.
Where are you tonight, Dave?
I am in East Sussex. Yeah.
Oh, there we are. We were in East Sussex only earlier today, the lovely Julia and I, which is great. So
Right.
nice to have you on board. Sorry, Karen.
No, that's fine. It's lovely to have you back. Thank you, Dave, for joining us. And finally, we're coming back to Donna Lee, who I think went to make a cup of tea or something. We missed you, Donna Lee, but say hi.
Yeah, hi. So, bit of a technical hitch. My laptop went off momentarily.
No problem. You're there now. Do you just want to give us a little bit about yourself? Why you you're on the panel tonight?
Well, I've spent 4 years diving around in various parts of the journey, going from Article 61 common law through to contract law, through to divine law, natural law, and exploring many of those avenues. So that's where I sit, just with a broad range of mainly I think my part is mindset, because I think what we're finding is a lot of people want to be sovereign, but there's a mindset to being sovereign that people have to get to.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks for joining us, Donna Lee. And I know you've had a personal experience you might refer to during this next 2 hours. So it's good to have you all on board. And that's it. We were going to have Paddy Spell, but unfortunately she's got a personal situation going on, so she can't join us this evening. But I think we've got a lot of knowledge and wisdom here already, Richard.
Absolutely. Well, in the background, scribbling on bits of paper, is the lovely Julia, who's also monitoring the questions, and she's already given me one. Thank you, Julia. So we're going to launch off with this one before if that's all right with everybody, just to get the thing underway. So this is from a lady called Lisa, and she says, can anyone advise on how to deal with CCJs, and how did each of the panels start their research, i.e., books, videos? In other words, what advice would you give to somebody who's getting into understanding what it is to be sovereign and the lawful situation? Karen, who would you like to answer that first?
I think our new man, David, I think that would be quite nice if he's up for it. How do you feel about answering that one, David?
Challenge accepted.
Okay, off we go. We're away.
My origin story was a baptism of fire access for my sons. It's just summarise and paraphrase then. Family breakdown, 6 and 8 year old boys, and mother in England becomes residential parent by default. Father, if he's lucky enough, gets to see and have access. If it's not a mutual split separation, then you have to fight and you have to go to court after mediation. Perhaps it's successful or not. In my case, not successful. 2 years, £20,000, and a court writ at the end of it to get access, which is something which nearly killed me. And at the time when I embarked on this, there was a campaign by Fathers for Justice. You may remember the people dressing up as Batman and so forth to get notice around for fathers that were getting depressed and suicidal because of parental alienation by the system. So that's my origin story, very much paraphrased, but it nearly killed me. What doesn't kill us makes us stronger. So I'm an expert now, and I'm not giving legal advice. I'll put my caveat in as well, as Richard has done. So I will be speaking, common English, my mother's tongue, and no legal advice to be considered from myself. But I'm now familiar and au fait with rights, entitlements, property. Rights at law can be classed as property. My mother, Julia Jeremita, was retiring as the head of Derby law department. She was under the dean, and she prepared the work for the lecturers to pass out to the students. So of the resources of my mother, her first-hand knowledge of the legal system, and I learned from orthodox publications, professors, civil procedure rules, pre-action protocols. It was my mother and her colleagues that introduced me to the straw man, which is in fact a legal fiction, or a personality, person, Latin. So if you want to get into this, I don't know about David and others, the others, how they would view this, but it's a broad area, and it's a team effort. So for you to want, anybody to want to competently navigate the stormy waters of the legal arena, legal and lawful, different jurisdictions, its language, the definitions of the words used are found in Black's Law Dictionary. I didn't know that, at the time, until my mum pointed that out. I'm from Oxford English definitions, my mother's legal profession, it's the language of the Law Society, so that's your first red flag. What are the pre-action protocols? What is the civil procedure rules? They're very good and handy for you to take note of. The maxims, the 10 maxims of commercial law, and the biblical precepts that accompany them, because they're very important to note. The inclusion of Latin. Latin is very powerful. It makes you stand out. It makes you look a little bit more like you know what you might be going on about. I was at the court with a solicitor, but often I was talking for myself, and I was in what is now known by myself as propria persona, in one's proper person. It's Latin, sui juris propria persona. And so, I got privy to certain aspects of that. You can not use a solicitor, and you can, in certain instances, if you deem it beneficial, or perhaps you can't afford it, to defend and represent yourself, or present and do business yourself. Remember, there are civil issues and civil jurisdictions, and then there are criminal jurisdictions and issues, different authorities, jurisdictions of courts to be aware of. So sometimes it may be beneficial to go alone. Sometimes you may need to have some counsel or solicit attorneys, whatever country you're watching this show in.
David,
counsel, yeah.
David, I'm going to stop you there. I don't want to put poor Lisa off with all that information that you've told her. That clearly there is a lot to learn. Part of her question was, can anyone deal with the CCJ? Should we give that to one of the other panelists? Who should we give that to? If you panelists, we can see you, so if you could put your hand up. Allegedly Dave, there we go, CCJs.
Right, as far as I'm concerned, it's once they've got the CCJ, that's difficult to get out of. What they've done is essentially built a house of cards. All through the process, they're building this house of cards, and the more you kind of go along with it, the more they're super gluing the cards together. Yeah, until once they've got to CCJ stage, it's now solid, right? But the trick is to actually stop it before you get there. So what will happen is a debt collector or a debt collection agency or a solicitor's firm, whatever, will file a claim at somewhere like Northampton. Yeah, that's it, Northampton County Court, which isn't really a court. They'll file a claim, but what they're doing is pretending to be the claimant. They're not actually the claimant. They've just bought the debt, so they're pretending to be the claimant. But if you don't know what's going on, then you just ignore it. But they're pretending to be the claimant. They're making a claim saying that you owe them money, and so on and so on. And they will send you a claim form, right? That that you've got to send back to the court. You just rebut their claims because they're not the claimant. We don't know who you are. Yeah. And it will go no further.
Brilliant. Okay.
There's another aspect to this. The lady's asked why, about the county court judgment. There is a question behind that, which is, why does having a county court judgment, what is it going to do to you in the future that's going to affect you? It will affect you if you go to get more credit And what we're learning is that because we are living in this debt-based society, maybe the best option is to put yourself in a position where you don't have to go and get credit anymore. So the county court judgment sitting over your head as a black mark is going to take away that fear of having it, because you're not going to go for credit anymore. That's another way of looking at it.
Yes, I know. I certainly don't want to. I mean, I had county court judgments, and it took a while to get past them all. I mean, for me, the fear disappeared when it was all doing this, and I just made them an offer. And in the end, I said, look, all I can do is pay you £5 a month. And they said, no, that's not good enough. We'll take you to court. And then they went to court, and they said, right, okay, you've got to pay whatever the bill was. What can you pay? And I said, £5 a month. And they said, all right, okay, so it's £5 a month. And you just think, well, it's gone through this process, and eventually it got paid off. But that was before I was anything like aware. I've got some email questions, which I have promised my emailers that I would put in. And some of them tried to ask last week, and to be honest, it was my fault. Completely forgot to read them out. So here's one for any of the panels. I'm 79, living alone, not helpless, but being harassed and bullied by a car parking company who claim I didn't pay when visiting a local nature reserve that I have visited many times before. Would any of you, the panel, be able to point me in the right direction with advice and support, please? And that comes from a lady called Linda. Anybody?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so with a private car parking company, it's usually you don't even have to really bother with them, but I would normally go with a couple of notices. So the thing to sort of ask yourself, right? Here's the question. Okay, where were you 2 weeks ago on a Friday at 5:45 and 30 seconds?
Oh, blimey, yeah. Who would know?
You don't know. So this is what they're trying to do. They're trying to say, at this precise time on this date at this location, you caused some kind of offence. In this case, parking. Yeah. But they haven't. You don't know. You don't have evidence that you were there yourself. So you can ask them. Okay, I'm not sure if I was there. Have you got any evidence to show me? Right. Sometimes I got a photograph. Well, the point is, a photograph is not evidence, right? A camera is not a witness. It can support a witness statement, right? But it can't be evidence of its own. Okay, right? So the photo is just there to get you to confess. That's all. Okay, because that's all they've got, a confession. That's all they can use is a confession.
That is really interesting, because I think loads of people get those pictures and go, oh, they've got me banged for rights.
Right, but if a camera could be a witness, then you could call you could go to court and say, I call the camera, I want to cross-examine it. Yeah, I like it.
Right. There's actually a really good video of a comedian who had this argument with his counsel, and he sent a picture of his car with a notice in it saying that I'm parked in Spain. There was a dialogue between him and the counsel. It was hilarious, and in the end, they couldn't use the photograph of where his car had been parked as evidence of where he had been. So after 5 or 6 volleys of emails, they just ripped up the alleged fine.
Right. So the point about the photograph is, how do you know that your car hadn't been cloned? Right? Because essentially your car, whatever make or model it is, there's like 50,000 of those cars, identical cars out on the road. The only difference is a number plate. Yeah.
Yes.
So how do you know that somebody's cloned your car? How do you know there wasn't a bit of bird shit on your number plate that made an F look like an E or a C look like a G? Yeah. How do you know you're not one of the 1 million a day of unreliable ANPR registers? Yeah. Because that software, that technology isn't perfect. Right? Apparently, I've got a news story that says there's over 1 million mistakes made a day on ANPR. So that photograph, has no bearing on the whole matter. So you can say, the photograph that you supplied looks very much like my car, but do you have any evidence?
Yes.
So,
And presumably you could use that also for the ULEZ things or these clean air zones and say,
Absolutely.
so
you've just made so many people so very happy, I think.
Any camera triggered so-called offence, apart from speeding, there's a difference here with speeding, but any camera driven offence, and the other thing is that it's actually against the law, right, constitutional law, to fine you before conviction, right? That's
Wow.
the Bill of Rights Act 1689, and it's also Magna Carta section Article 39, I think. I can't remember offhand. I think it's Article 39, but it's basically preventing anyone to be fined or dispossessed or punished in any way before conviction, because in this country you are innocent until proven guilty, so you can't punish an innocent person until they're proven guilty. So the councils and these companies are getting around it because of people's ignorance.
That is amazing. That's why we have you on the show, allegedly, Dave.
Richard, if I may just add on to the back of what David said, and I'll be quick, but this is useful for now and for future. The burden of proof in English law, English common law of England and Wales, when we speak of law, not legislation, acts and statutes, the claimant is duly obligated to provide the material matter, the facts of the matter, the particulars of the claim. So the burden of proof lying upon the claimant. So what we can consider saying is, as David has correctly pointed out, we cannot be clear, we cannot be sure with a clear conscience of whom the driver was that day. So we require proofs of whom the claim is against, as David's pointed out very concisely there. So with a clear conscience, we can't remember, and and also, if your subscribers and the panel are aware or not aware, you need to be aware that you can either accept the controversy, you can deny the controversy, or there's a third option which keeps you with the thing called clean hands and in honour. So it stops and halts all fines, fees and forfeitures from being applied. So you don't have to admit it if you believe you was incorrect or there was a mistake or it was wrong. You don't have to argue it and add further controversy to the situation. You can conditionally accept it, or you can consider doing so, and you can say you require the proofs of, and that conditional acceptance puts the onus onto the claimant to provide the details and the particulars of the claim. And if they further do not provide you with the information and they fail, or you've got to set time periods for this, the ticking clock, and you may or may not want to introduce a schedule of fees. That's also something to consider. Time is money. And I'll leave it there. So there's some key words there for people to look at with regards to the practice directions, common law, and staying in honour, and choosing how to accept the claim and to possibly move forward with that. All right.
Wow, some very powerful answers to that. Sorry, Dave.
So the notices I was mentioning were these conditional acceptance notices. I've got something called the ULEZ and Traffic Offences Toolkit. And if anybody wants one, just give me a shout.
Oh, brilliant. We'll do all the links and put that in the description at the end. Thanks, Dave. Karen.
Yeah, I was just looking at mine, actually, because I've got one of those notices here. So that's a really useful one. Thank you very much for that. That was on tomorrow's to-do list. Now I know what to do. And interestingly, I thought it was from when I come to your studio, Richard, because we go over the hour and I park at Morrison's. But this is another one. I don't know where I've been for this one, so it's I'm collecting them. Right, we have a question here. So from Stan McDonald, he says, it has been stated that your power bills are prepaid, and I know people who have changed out the power meter. However, they have gotten charged for stealing electricity under the Electric Act. Any comments on that one?
As long as they're willing to submit meter readings, they're not stealing electricity. Yeah, because
Don't put meter readings in. Don't do it.
Who does the electricity belong to, or the gas, or the water? Who does it belong to? It belongs to all of us. It's it's part of our rights. That's part of the dominion that we were given when we got on this planet.
you also might want to ask who are we stealing from?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
It is a good question. But what about the infrastructure? Because we can't just grasp air or water or electricity and put it into our television. So somebody has created a system.
We paid for that. We paid for all of that infrastructure, and I think it was it 1933, Dave, when we handed over all of our gold to the government. So everything that our ancestors, our grandparents had paid for in terms of the infrastructure, all of those things were paid for by the people and were owned by the people. They were nationalised and then they became privatised, and who benefited from that? So we've already paid for that infrastructure.
And also, off the back of that, I'd like to add that when the corporation known as the United Kingdom PLC Limited etc. goes bankrupt, so when bankruptcy happens in itself, who then becomes the creditors? Who owns the property? Where does the property go to? So you've got relevance with people. Some people getting confused about, you sovereigns think you don't have to follow the law, you this, that, the other. But if we want to get to the nitty gritty with regards to the utilities and the mineral and energy rights, when the bankruptcy happened in 1869 and then the latter period of the 20th century in the 1900s, various multiple bankruptcies of the corporation, the government, the removal of gold standards. Pound notes used to be transferable for intrinsic value. There's no intrinsic value. Coins used to contain silver back in the day. All of that's changed. It's worthless now. Promises. Your word is your bond. So there is for those that are struggling to grasp this concept, we have got extensive knowledge and can prove regards to what Donnelly and David are saying regards to who owns what. And to close down, when we are going for our remedy, our equitable relief in the form of remedy for the from the state, which we're going to do later this year, the alleged TDA Treasury Direct, and the equitable relief comes from the mineral and energy rights that the state have profited on and sold, and the corporations are allowed to trade with. So it's tangible, it's logical, and I'll leave it there. I've said enough for you. All right,
Dave.
I'll just say that okay, so National Grid are responsible for the utilities all the way up to the meter. Okay, and we pay through our taxes for National Grid, so we've already paid for that, right? So all the utilities are delivered to the door, right? The energy suppliers have only got essentially jurisdiction over the meter, and they charge.
They're not a supplier; they're a credit broker. They're just charging you to meter and for the provision of something that they don't own. They're a broker. And interestingly, in terms of what the other Dave was saying there, is that if we assume that the country is a corporation, which we know that it is, and if we know that every country in the world is bankrupt, that God knows who we all owe this money to. But if the country is so much in debt and it cannot pay its debts and it is therefore in bankrupt, it should not be trading. Because if there was a company that was knowingly insolvent and continued to trade and take money off of its customers, that is unlawful according to the Companies Act of 2006. It's fraudulent. So
there is Chapter 51, I think it is Chapter 51, that allows them to trade, while bankrupt, to aid the creditors. But yeah.
Are we still at war, says the recruiter every day in one of the houses. So it's considered that we might still be in wartime. You look at I know there's many questions, but there's war comes into it, worship, ungodly conduct here, spiritual side of things comes into it. So I'll leave it there, but there is connotations of souls deserting your posts, belligerent, etc. I'll leave it there. So it gets a little bit dark as well when you're going into them waters, as I'm sure you're all aware.
Golly, so there, a simple question opens up an amazing stuff, doesn't it, Karen?
It doesn't. It does indeed. And although it's a very serious matter that we're talking about, it is an entertainment show, and I think we need to remind people of that, because I know some people do make comments about, why do we have a bit of a laugh? But I think you need to have a bit of a laugh in life, and humour is a very good thing. So we know it's deep, we know it's dark, and we're just trying to sort of plough our way through and help people with answers. And I've got another question here. I'm going to try and read it correctly, from Paul Higgins. He says, what's a legal person? Is a man or woman a legal person? And can another man swear one is?
May I? I'd like to go for that. So there's a lot of work I've done. This is one of my specialist subjects. So persons, research it for yourself. Don't take a word that I'm saying as gospel, but you can know that persons, in the scriptures, it does warn you. The KJV 1611 is a book of commerce. It's the original redemption manual. When you build the new world needs the language and order, and it's written in that version that replaced the Geneva Bible. For with God there is no respect of persons. In the 82nd Psalm, it is written that Jesus says that, have I not said, ye are all gods. Now, for the literalists, this is an insult. I take a lot of flack for this, but for those that really want to know and to manage their estate and to look at sovereignty, man David, allegedly Dave, he's not claiming the state name. He knows he's allegedly called Dave. A name, to break this down, persons, topic, a name starts with a capital letter in English grammatic. So to be grammatically correct, it's a noun. It describes and denotes an object or a thing. We are not objects, we are not things. We are souls, as it says in Genesis 2:7, when God breathed the breath of life into Adam, Adam became a living soul. We're not free men on the land. We're not sovereign citizens. That's an oxymoronic statement. In their own terms, my honour, I am a living soul, as it says in the good book. What is present in every court, every lawful court, and I use the word law loosely, land, air, water, LAW, there is a Bible. What's the world's most popular book that's given away for free? Hotels, courts, you find it everywhere. There's a reason for that. We've wandered, we strayed from the path. And again, I'm not a Christian, to be fair. I'm a Tibetan Buddhist. So, I'm aware that there is a redemption manual and a pathway. We, as Graham Hancock says, we're a species with amnesia. So look at the types of persons. An artificial legal person. Companies can be persons. A person of significant interest on Companies House can be listed as another company. So look at the different types, and I say this with love, and I'd say this because I know what I'm on about here, and my mum, as I said at the beginning for my origin story, introduced me to the legal personality. Person is not an English word. Go back to grammatics and linguistics and semantics and so forth, syntax. It comes from Latin origin. It means persona. Persona means mask. It's not an English word. In our language, in our D-based language, we used to speak Latin and Francais back in the day, hundreds of years ago, when the battles and invasions were going off. This is not a thing that happened overnight. And those that did not have the intellect and intelligence and education, that weren't lords and squires, spoke English, that spoke the common tongue. They were obviously from the aristocracy viewed as the commoners. So there was a distinction between types of persons, squires, lords, and etc. The titles that you have, like Mr, is one of the lowest titles. I do not accept to be entitled with that title, and it's quite vital that you hear this, so lords, lordship, ambassadors, different types. So people that say you sovereigns don't think you don't have to follow the law. It is not a land-based law, is not traditionally viewed as being across blanketed the land. You can have diplomatic immunity. Look at Anne Secoulis, who ran over Harry Dunn, who then ran off to America after committing murder, manslaughter. Common law was breached. She got away with it. Why? Because she claimed as her person a diplomat, which is then not under the constraints of the common laws of England. But a Mr. or Mrs. will be laird, lord. You see where I'm going? So again, I'll leave it there because thank you.
That's a lot of information.
That's and no, thank you. I mean, it's very concise. So, I mean, I think what David there is demonstrating that a very simple term, especially in this lawful situation or the legal situation, however it is, has got so much behind it that sometimes the answer is very, very deep and detailed. So thank you, David, for that. So, yeah, we try to answer the questions as best we can. And that's, to me, that's what's great about doing this show, isn't it, Karen? Because everybody that we have brings a different slant to the answers.
Absolutely. And I think that's where the sovereignty comes in, because we as individual sovereign people have to make our own path, our own way from all the information that is available to us through the research. So, yeah, absolutely. Would you like to ask questions?
Yes, please. I've got some questions here, but go with yours.
Okay. So Thomas Moran, because he's posted this a couple of times, he asked, could we not all take out credit cards, as we know it's our credit, and how to get rid, it's our credit and how to get rid of the debt. Then, with that currency, set up buying up land and setting up a new nation. Anybody? Strange question, but interesting.
Dave. You're
muted. I know.
Yeah.
Yes, you could do that. It's possible. In fact, that's one thing that somebody called Paul Yates actually espouses. He's got a book called "The Title is Unimportant," and his view is that we can release this credit and essentially give the credit to the homeless or people who really need it. Personally, I don't really go that way, because I believe it's kind of dishonorable. They're being dishonorable with us with this credit system. I feel it's dishonorable to use it, in the same way. So, yeah, you might think of it as you could think of it as a way of making money, as it were, but essentially you take the credit out and then you point out the fact that they didn't give you anything, and you can actually as soon as you prove it, as it were, they basically write the debt off, because there is no debt. So yes, you could use it for that, but I personally think it's dishonorable.
Right, good. Okay, brilliant. Thank you, Dave. I've got a question. This is one of the email ones that came in. It says, I'd like to know if it's possible to apply for a passport and at the same time keep one's inalienable rights intact. I've heard that you can write all rights reserved with your signature. Not sure how true that is or what else you would need to know or do. I am sure the amazing interchangeable panel will be able to offer some insight. So if anybody would like to tackle that one, would be good. So applying for a passport and keeping your inalienable rights, do they disappear?
If I may start the ball. Oh, Donna, ladies first.
Carry on.
Are you sure? Well, yes. You can look at the difference between a signature, a sign of nature. Look how the word signature is spelt, and look at an autograph. Okay, when you see a celebrity, you don't ask them for their signature. You'd ask them for their autograph. What is the difference? The words in themselves: authority, from the author, the policy. So we look at the way that we would afford liability. How do you retain rights? I often put by David. So by lowercase, full colon, which is 2 dots, and then David, all lowercase. That is not a signature. That's just one way of doing it. You can write all rights reserved, all unalienable rights reserved, and do an autograph. So I explained earlier the differences with a name. Starting with a capital letter, it's a noun, denotes an object or a thing, and it's legally classified as such, and it's legal. If you want to do an autograph, they also require you to start with a capital letter with the autograph. Yes, but I always do the signature starts with the capital letter to be classified valid on a legal document as the signature. I always put the autograph and do it with the lowercase, and nobody ever questions that. UCC, because the United Kingdom is on the Securities Exchange, is an interesting thing to look at, but I wouldn't go into that for passports. And then lastly, your title denotes your status, standing and capacity. What do I mean by that? It's the status, standing and capacity. So a public legal person, the general public, when I speak of army and the macabre nature of military, ecclesiastical law and things like this with regards to souls, airplanes taking off, the captain must let them know. As we're talking passports, I've interviewed 2 pilots, and you can find this out for yourselves. Before a plane is allowed to take off with its manifest of passengers, the captain has to let them know how many souls are on board. In business, you have a sole trader. All right, so souls are mentioned, unfortunately, in this black world of Black's Law, black uniforms, black magic, and dark arts. This is the way. This is as real as it is. So yeah, signatures and autographs. Look into that. And then if you're in the private and you're a celebrity, an ambassador, a diplomat, perhaps monarchy. Not that we are, but how do you think they travel? As public or as private? Do they have different titles? Does their title and their status, standing and capacity, maybe instead of a public legal person, they are a private lawful man, and that denotes, their titles denote different access. But when I applied for my person's passport as a British citizen to close down, you've got the United Kingdom for the internet and shopping, you've got England football team to support England, and the Olympics now we're talking Team GB, Great Britain, UK, England. There's different jurisdictions, as well as on the landmass. London town has got its own jurisdiction, its own police, its own postcode. Very real again. So titles, jurisdiction, authority, public, private. What's useful for you to take away is names, nouns, the signature, and then the difference between the signature and the autograph. We note a liability, public liability, reverse liability, vicarious liability. As a signature on a document is executed as a deed. If the signature on the document is missing, the document is not executed as a deed. Companies Act, Section 44, 2010 Companies Act, you'll find that roughly in there. And also it's written within the Bills of Exchange, 1882, authority, documents, deeds. We're doing a good deed today by giving our free time and helping those that may need to be enlightened by these lovely luminaries that I'm with today. So I'll yield there.
Thank you, David. Thank you so much. Donna Lee, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I don't know what I can add to that, except for there is a private and there is the public. In the private, you've got a God-given right to travel. The inside of your passport states that there should be no hindrance to you travelling. I'm just in the process of applying for another passport. I've got one, but I want to reapply for my passport without a surname, or surety name. So I'm going to try to get my passport without a family name in it. That's kind of what I wanted to say about it, is that what we're trying to do is we're aiming to get into the private and out of the public jurisdiction.
Right. Okay.
Can I just ask Richard, Donna Lee, how are you going to try and get a passport in just your maiden, not your maiden name, your Christian name?
Just in my Christ forgiven calling, because I understand even from the if you go onto the deed poll office, which is part of the government agency, it does state that no one needs a surname. So I'm going to write to them and say I haven't got one.
Interesting.
Simple, just very simple.
I had one, I lost it. I put it down somewhere and it's vanished. So I don't know what it is.
That's your surname, Richard, yeah? You lost.
Yeah, I lost it. I had it earlier. Don't know what I've had it. Sorry. I mean, what do you do? When you say you haven't got one, I mean, what will they say to that?
Well, the deed poll office states that nobody has to have a surname. So I'm going to write to them and state that I want my passport to have my surname taken off it.
Brilliant.
But I'm just, I'm not I'm not intellectually based. I'm just going to do what I feel is right, and I'm going to just say that I want my surname to be taken off my passport. I'm understanding that I don't need it. Take it off, please.
Yeah, let us know if it happens, because they might have a flurry of people. I've got a question here from Ali Rigg from the chat, and I just apologise if you've written your question some time ago and we haven't answered it. The lovely Julia is scribbling, and Karen is obviously looking as well, and they are coming in. We will get to them as best we can. So this is Ali Rigg says, I bought a motorbike but haven't registered it. It's MOT'd insured, but I can't road tax it because it will have to be registered, but I don't want to. Is there any advice?
It's already registered. They changed the system a while back. I don't know exactly when, but it was registered before anybody bought it. So now, when you buy a new a car or a motorbike or something, you don't actually have to put your name in. The seller puts your name in, and the registration it gets transferred to you. So no, it should be already registered as far as I know.
You can apply for the manufacturer's certificate of origin if you go to the DVLA, and you can ask them that you want because that's the document that the manufacturer of the mode of transport fills out, which states that it's been manufactured to certain safety standards, and that's what gets sent to the DVLA. And I believe that you can request or require that the manufacturer's certificate of origin is sent back to you if it's a car. So I'm assuming it's very similar if it's a motorbike.
I'd like to know if anyone's actually got one, because
it's actually I believe it's a V888 form, right? And but it says it's for a dealer to do. I'm sure you can get around that, but it says for a dealer. The thing about that though is that if you're going to go down that route, you've got to go the whole hog. You've got to go down the whole deregistration thing, because if you get the MCO, you still got their number plate on your car. So basically, or bike, you're saying that it is registered. It is a registered vehicle. So you have to go through the whole process of deregistration and send their number plate back to them. And you've got to be ready to face off against the police when they inevitably stop you. It's a long road, and it's quite a hard road, which I'm going to hopefully by the end of this year I'm going to start that process. But it is a long road, and it's
not easy. Is it? You sent me a video a while back, Dave, of about 11 years ago or something, when you had done exactly this, and and the boys in blue came along, and you were doing everything, but they did take your car. That was some time ago.
Yeah, but it was, as you say, 12 years ago. And at the time, there was nobody else to follow. I was doing it. I was making it up as I went along.
Yeah, bless you.
But now I've learned a lot since then. So.
Yeah. Well, we need pioneers like you to go and do it for us, so that we feel a bit more confident. So well done to that. Karen, have you got any questions?
Yes, I have. Well, they're not mine, but we've got another one here from Pandora Chaser 2. Can CCJs not be written off via vulnerability status and the Equalities Act 2010? I heard of people clearing their so-called credit references via such, or via the DSAR or GDPR breaches.
Malicious.
Anybody?
Well, that would be a malicious communication. I wouldn't know for definite, but just before you get into that, that last question, look into transfer of titles from public to private using the Bill of Sales Act. Whenever you buy something, you write a handwritten receipt, Yeah, that's just like that's covered under the Bill of Sales Act in English law. You can inform the DVLA titles and rights of change. You can also use trust technology to put property into trusts, and I've effectively communicated with the Chief Executive, Julie Leonard, at the time of the DVLA, held her to account with the ICO because they failed, and I got her to do what she needed to do with regards to that last question. And moving forward to this one, yeah, the GDPR and the data regulations, I'm familiar with, again, using this onto the DVLA, Julie Leonard and the agents and officers there. But I would say that you might be able to get a discontinuation, or you might be able to fight the claims that have been made and the credit file that's been affected by going out through, and I've done a lot with Julie Leonard, DVLA. I've got videos on my channel going through. I'm not here to promote, I've got enough going off, but if people want to find out further detailed information on such things as data regulation, protection, enforcement, malicious communications and seeking remedy on that front, I've done a little bit with Julie, DVLA, the ICO, the Information Commissioner's Office, when they failed to recognise their rights, duties, responsibilities, and the regulatory ombudsman had to step in, hold them to account. I served a Section 10 of the 1998 Data Protection Act on them. They proved legitimate interest. The right to be forgotten comes into play, can be. I am allegedly on the autistic Asperger's spectrum, for those wondering what's going on and how it's coming out. That's the nature of my mental genetic alchemy that's going off. So I apologise if some people are like, what, too much information, I need to rewind it. Yeah, that's just the way it is.
David, don't have to say anything about that, because what you're doing is you are giving us lots of information, and some people it may go over their heads, but some people are joining the dots. So,
all right, thank you.
Yeah,
Richard.
No, absolutely. Yeah. Can I just say a big thanks to Question Everything, who's just sent in a super chat for £20, which I think is the first. So we'll be buying a pizza and sharing it round. Although actually, probably best not to eat pizzas, unless you've made it yourself, of course, out of wholesome ingredients. Because you have to be so careful these days what you say, otherwise people will be chasing you. Allegedly, Dave, I've got a question here. I'm dubious about asking these sort of personal questions, and this is from somebody called Neat One. But I think when people do put their heads above the parapet, we do have to sort of face them a bit. And I say, please don't shoot the messenger. This one says, did Dave travel to Hong Kong with a citizen passport?
No, I didn't. Because at this point, there is no way of getting around the passport, because you're not fighting the government. You're fighting the bod at the desk who says, sorry, can't let you through without a passport.
Right.
But, you know, there is words that you can call the embassy of the country you're going to and tell them that you're coming, and you don't require a passport, and you know they'll let you in. But I've never heard of that actually working.
Sounds great though, doesn't it? I'm just coming into a country. Would you mind just opening the door? Yeah. That would be hilarious. Imagine then if that caught on and everybody started to do it. It would be a nightmare. If everybody did, then it would fall apart, because yes,
if you think about it, there were no passports before World War One. There's no such thing. Is that right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
World War One brought in the passport essentially. So before then, you could literally just jump on a boat or a plane or something, turn up in France and set up shop there, you know.
Fantastic. There you go. How interesting. Thanks for that. Karen, any other questions you've got? I've got some more.
There's a good comment here from Mike Forshaw. He says he got caught on a speed camera in January. He's since moved back to China. The DVL wanted his Chinese address, so he sent it to them by email in Chinese, and they have dropped the issue. That's a simple, way to do it, isn't it? We can go and move to China.
Yeah, I said, how would they prove that you don't actually live there if you just send in a Chinese address, even though it's from the UK, or you get a friend in China to do it?
Yeah, there's a similar one where where you have to name the driver. Then somebody's named the driver as a Chinese person and given it their Chinese address, and that's it. It goes no further.
It goes brilliant.
Oh, easy. That's the answer. Great. We like those sort of solutions, don't we? I'll be doing that with my tickets in here.
That's it.
But personally, again, I don't do that because you're lying.
Well, that's true.
And if whenever you lie, there's a possibility you get caught out in the lie. So,
well, it's karma, isn't it? Really, because we should be sort of living with integrity and honesty. I hear you.
Clean hands, the clean hands doctrine again, and honour if you can. It's very hard to keep honour in the face of adversity such as this, but people need to, souls out there, man needs to look at paperwork and sorting paperwork out prior to even challenging things like this, which is probably for another show. But I've got some ideas and information on how you can move from public to private. For instance, just quickly, a driver. Look at the legal definition of driver. Yes, it's somebody who is paid to commit commerce or somebody who works for the government. So when you get stopped by an officer and they say on the window and you go hello and they go, are you the driver? It's happened to us all that travel, and because not a lot of us are actually in fact drivers. Driver comes from the word English etymological root reference. Drover comes from shepherd, flock, drover, this kind of area as well. And driver, the officer, no, I'm not the driver. I passed my driver to him and he said, have you been drinking, son? No, I haven't been drinking. Are you lawfully or legally trained? No, I'm not. Well then, leave me alone. That's my driver. Okay, you've asked me a question and I've answered you. It's obviously got a 50-50 answer. You didn't say, hey, Mr. Driver, I require your driving details. They ask you a question. You then have got the option to choose if you are the driver or if you're not the driver. So you can present your driver. So we implement the instrumentation, but ultimately that's just a workaround. You need to communicate with you need to consider to communicate with various levels of government and offices and agencies, as I said I did with Julie Leonard, the ICO and enforcement, and telling her she was having none of it. She even said, I don't have to give you a DSA, a subject access request for data, a SAR, and X, Y, and Z. And she was very obstreperous about it, and they don't like being told what's what. I even rang them and put the video of the call on my channel where the geezer said, yes, we own the property. When I said, there's been a change of titles. You don't own the property. You are holding information as a company, and when you knowingly get told and informed that the information is wrong, the data regulations, back to the previous question about data and things, they stipulate that you must now change that data so it is correct. Otherwise it's classified as a crime, an offence, a criminal offence, should I say. So there's ways of doing it, but ultimately you need to get your house in order and before going into battle, let's put some armour on and then go for the fight. Let's not just go with the t-shirt and no weapons.
David,
with one thing is that whenever they're trying to enforce legislation upon you, whenever any of the agencies are going to try and enforce any kind of legislation on you, if they're going to try to do that, legislation, there's a whole broad range of legislation, not just the secondary legislation, our primary legislation, actually, so the Coronation Oath, the Bill of Rights, the Treason Act and the Act of Settlement, those four superior laws actually govern how governance works. And so if their authority, their delegated powers and authority that they're trying to exert on you, they can't ignore one set of rules to enforce a second set of rules. And their statutory powers and authority ends where my civil rights begins. So, we've all got unalienable rights that are expressed in the higher laws, such as Dave mentioned it earlier, the Bill of Rights. And so if they want to enforce law, they've got to enforce all of it. And that includes the civil rights of men and women who have got unalienable rights that they cannot take away, or they've got to prove that they've got the right to take those rights away.
So that's really interesting there, Donald. I mean, so many interesting points. The one that you just said there, if they're going to instigate their laws or the legislation, they've got to do all of it, which means we can't pay the council tax because we're aiding and abetting the terrorism that is. Yes. We keep seeing that. So that's fascinating. And David, I've got to say, the word of the evening. I had to write it down because I wasn't 100% sure.
Oh no.
How do you say that again? Obstruculus.
Obstruculus, cantankerous and obstruct. I told you it's part of my mental makeup, but go on then. Go on, Richard.
I love it. Obstruculus. I've got to use that more frequently.
All right, my man. So thank you for that. But look, everybody, I invite you to read the first page of your passport. Dave mentioned transport, port. When we talk of admiralty law, maritime law, common law, contract law, all these multifaceted dimensions and jurisdictions, admiralty and maritime, the sailors are given liberties when they come to shore and they are needing from the port to get inland on the road, so they have transportation. And the port pass, the passport that they have and that we use, that we talked about as well, if you read, and for those that don't have one to hand, this is an old one. It's still in date and it's referenced the Queen. Her Britannic Majesty's Secretary of State requests and requires in the name of Her Majesty all those whom it may concern to allow the bearer to pass freely without let or hindrance, and to afford the bearer such assistance and protection as may be necessary. So you are allowed to pass freely with a port pass. So perhaps just something that was put to me randomly, somebody said, instead of a driving licence, could we not show our British? And I'm like, I don't know, I wouldn't try that, but it's an interesting thought as we're on that. But the connotations between land, maritime, admiralty, the sea-bearing laws and sailors, ports, passes. Interesting.
Actually, we could, because it doesn't say anything about ports there. It doesn't say about countries or anything. It just tells the Queen's employees, the police, right, that they have to leave you alone.
I like that. There you go. Then food for thought. It's just food for thought.
It certainly is. This hasn't happened on this show so far, Karen. I don't know what we're going to do. Esoteric Knight of Malta has sent £22 and 22 pence to the show. We're obviously going to have some party.
That's the little thing at the top of the screen. I see that. There was another one a minute ago, and I didn't know what it was. This is super things, is it? The super chat.
These are the super chats that people can send donations. So I feel a bit bad. It'll come into my account, but I'm making a note of any of those so that I can share it out somehow, because it's not happened before. That's
lovely. Well, that's very kind of them. If you were going to get a pizza, how are you going to share it between us? Because we're all over the place.
Yes, well, obviously I'll just sit here and eat it, and you can watch me.
Toby, get it to charity. Get it to charity or something. I don't know, a community. No, the money, not the pizza.
Not the pizza.
But being autistic, my favourite food is pizza, because it's it's a round food that comes in a square box. It's cut into triangles. Quite Sheldon.
Yeah, there you go. Julia loves that.
Question here, trying to be serious. Bodian Human had a question for Dave. Ready, Dave? Ask Dave why speeding is different. Different from what? Obviously, it's pertaining to a previous question.
Oh yeah, to the parking ones we were talking about. Yeah.
Right. Well, okay. So it's different in respect of the Bill of Rights Act 1689. So as I said, you can't be punished if you're presumed innocent, but the police kind of sneakily get around that because they're not fining you. They're sending you a notice of intended prosecution. So saying, we're going to take you to court, but you can settle out of court for this much.
I see.
So they're not actually fining you. They're getting you to pony up the money to avoid going to court. And
at the end, interesting article in the Telegraph recently about these single justice procedure notices and people being dragged into these closed doors magistrates court hearings, similar to what they do with the council tax, actually. So there are, I think it was about a month ago that this was in the Telegraph, and my issue with the whole of the speeding element and these speeding fines is that if you've caused no harm, loss or injury, there is actually no crime. There is no crime. And this is the situation that I'm in at the moment with my driver's license. If there is no crime, then why are we going into a criminal hearing in a civil court? That's fraud.
Yeah, the single justice procedure. Okay, yeah, it is a closed hearing. So literally, it's a kangaroo court type thing. But what you can do is just return that whole wodge of paperwork they send you. You send it back to them and say, I politely decline your single justice procedure because there is no case to answer, because they want you to plead, because that's what the letter says. Could you enter a plea? Well, I'm not going to plea because there is no case to answer. You haven't proved that I was there. I'm asking you for evidence that I was there, and you haven't given it to me. So there is no case to answer. There's no crime being committed, and there is no contract that's been breached. So no case to answer.
And on the back of that, these administrative courts venues, you mentioned the Northamptonshire County Court Business Bulk Handling Centre. Wow, that's a mouthful, isn't it, everyone?
Isn't it? Yeah.
For a court. It's just incredible with regards to the administration side of things. So if we look at one of the, not a jurist, in fact, it's a publication called Halsbury's Laws of England. Yes. Commentaries in there. I think it's 2014. I've got it here.
2011.
There you go. And what does it say, Dave, my man? Can you remember, or do you want me to?
It says there is no provision in this country for administrative courts, and no act can be passed to legitimise them.
Gosh, something like that. He's paraphrased it, which is what I was going to do. That's exactly right. They are not. They're not lawful. Is the single justice procedure lawful, or is it legal? And to close down as well, when you're talking about these subjects, a parking charge, a penalty charge, yes, and look at the differences. Research what a parking charge, a PCN, and a PCN, which is a penalty charge or a penalty notification. The two differences there between them as well. Public, private, council, police. There is something to have a look at there. I'm not going to expand on it now, but some you can manage with, and some you have to actually deal with in a different way and get a bit more serious with them. But I'll leave it there. Halsbury's Laws of England for administrative court. So as David said, you can't be deemed guilty till your jury of your peers has deemed you, judged you. So you are innocent allegedly till proven guilty. So can we have a common law? Bring forward, as Donnelly said, and bring forward the man who I have claimed. Who I have hurt? Where is the claimant? Who is the man? Because at law they always say men. I know we're in a world which has got different genders now, but please just let me be me. Understand.
You can be you, Dave. Yeah, absolutely. This is why this is called the Clever Clogs, the Lawful Remedy with the Clever Clog, because my goodness, Dave, allegedly Dave there got that how you remember all this stuff, these different, I mean, obviously you've been doing it for a hell of a long time, which is so impressive, and that's what makes this show so interesting to listen to. I've got a question here from Toby Henderson, who says, why don't we, when in court, all release our interest to the registered registration security, you may have to explain that, then get the court clerk to do a full accounting of the estate's account? Does anybody understand the meaning of that question?
It's to do with the fiduciary duties of the court, is my understanding. I mean, I'm sure Dave understands this in a greater depth than me, but when you walk into a courtroom, you're the beneficiary of the trust. When you walk into a courtroom, they do a bait and switch and turn you into the trustee of the trust. So that someone is going to pick up the fee when you go into a courtroom. So the prosecutor is the person who has the responsibility for the costs of that case, whilst you're the beneficiary of the trust. So what they do is they get you to accept the trusteeship, and they switch your position so that you then become responsible for all of the fees of the case. And they do that by, when you get to identify yourself, when they ask you what your name is, can you identify yourself? And you answer to, like for me, they'll say, are you Donnelly Andrews? Yes, I am. Okay, well, in which case then that's switched my position from being the beneficial person within that trust to being the person with fiduciary duties, because I've accepted responsibility for the name on the birth certificate, which is not me. That's not me. I am a woman called by the calling of Donnelly. The name on the birth certificate, Donnelly Andrews, is not me. I didn't make that name. The Crown is the owner, creator of the document with that family name on it. So as soon as you identify yourself in a courtroom or to any authority as your first name and your surname, you are accepting the responsibilities of that name. You're taking on the fiduciary duties of that name.
So in theory, you shouldn't then give that jurisdiction away?
No. Or better still, you ask them to, because when you walk into let's just talk about a court situation, when you're in a contract, if it was a business contract, at the top of it, you'll normally get the definitions of like the company name and who's in, what the terms and conditions are in definition. So when you walk into a courtroom and they say, can you give your name? The first question is, well, can you define the word your, please? Which jurisdiction are we talking about here? Who is the your that you're discussing? Because you haven't given me a dictionary. I'm talking common English. You might be speaking legalese, which is a separate language to English. And in fact, we can illustrate that because there's a place in London called the British Legal Centre, which is somewhere where they take you to teach you how to speak legalese. They even recognise themselves that it's a separate language. So if they're going to speak this language and say, who are you, can you tell me your name? Or which your, please? Can you just confirm which your that you're talking to? Are you talking to you, Donnelly, or are you talking to the birth certificate? I need to know, because I need to know which jurisdiction you're operating out of.
Right. Gosh, yes. It's so fascinating, isn't it? Karen, have you got a question?
Well, yeah, there was one that was answered. So Amanda asked what is an ANPR, and then Pandora, Chaser 2, answered, which is really nice, saying it's the automatic number plate recognition. So I thought I'd just mention that in case other people wondered what the ANPR was.
Yes.
And then there is another question, which I've lost because the screen's gone up. So I don't know if you've got one at hand. Oh, here we go. No, Masbro. So the question, I left NHS 3 years ago. They failed to reimburse the owed annual leave, but paid me a monthly salary. They continue to send invoices for the salary and ignore my annual leave. What are my options? Does that make sense, that question?
Yep.
Yeah.
The only thing I would say is, you've got a contract of employment. I would go and have a look at that. If they've breached that contract, then you've got a case against them.
Bang on. That's exactly what I would say as well, Dave. Refer to that. Refer to the contract, isn't it?
I think with employment law, it's one of the few areas where we still have got like a lot of common law in that, in those relationships. But in a previous life, when I was an HR manager, I put a caveat to this question, because the lady could pursue them for the unpaid leave, but there is a potential that eventually she's going to want to get a job somewhere else, and if she does and she makes waves for herself,
Yes.
there's a possibility that the reference that she would rely on from that employer may not be quite so favourable. So sometimes you have to pick your battles. weigh up how much your annual leave is in terms of the overpayment of salary, and then consider, is this something, is it worth your while taking them into an employment tribunal, taking yourself through the stress of an employment tribunal just to receive, if it's, I don't know what your financial circumstances are, but you have to weigh up all the direct and the indirect costs of that.
Grand. Thank you so much for that, everybody. We are at 7:15 as we do this. We've got 45 minutes left, and there's still quite a few questions coming in. Here's one from Belinda, who emailed in and said, Thames Water are texting me every other day, sending me emails once a week, as well as threatening letters. I have paid the utility bill for the last year and a quarter of this, and apart from their stalking and bullying attitude, I have not agreed to go on direct debit. I don't have any faith in the water as it has to be filtered. I want to stop payments until I get reassure from them that what is in the water. Is this one for your experts? Brilliant, Donnelly.
In terms of the direct debit, no one can make you sign a direct debit. If they're saying you've got to sign a direct debit, the question is, prove to me that I've got to sign a direct debit. Remember that every arrangement that you have with everybody else in this world comes down to your consent. If you do not consent, they cannot make you do it. So I would go back to them and say, you're telling me I've got to sign a direct debit. Prove to me that I do.
Right. Okay. So if you've and would that apply if you've got a direct debit and you've done it and you think, actually, do you know, I'm a bit fed up with these people?
Yeah, cancel it.
Right. Yeah. I did actually do that with the water company, and they sent me a little gyro thingy to say, well, you've got to pay it all in one go, and I did deal with it in a different way, but this isn't for me to say. Dave.
Just a note on what to do, going forward. I've got, I guess, a letter from, I think it's Essex and Suffolk Water, where, surprisingly, they detail all the chemicals and things they add to the water.
Blimey.
And it's a bad list. Let's put it that way. It's a very bad list. It includes. There's a line in it that says hexafluorosilicic acid. I don't know if you know what that is. Do you know what it is? I don't.
No.
That's fluoride. That's what they call fluoride.
Yes.
It's hexafluorosilicic acid or hydrofluorosilicic acid. It's chemical waste, essentially. And it says requested by Public Health England, which means if Public Health England requested Essex and Suffolk Water to put that stuff in, then they're requesting all the water companies to put that stuff in. Yeah. So... they're talking about fluoridating water. They already are, right? Anyway.
Yes, so, I've had somebody on the show talking about exactly that actually quite recently. So yeah. Yeah,
if you haven't got yourself a distiller, get one. Yeah. Anyway, so there's a few nasty chemicals in there, including fluoride. So I basically send a notice to the company and say, I will happily pay your water charges, right, if you pay my post-delivery treatment charges, because there's all this stuff in the water. I have to distill it, I have to add hydrogen peroxide to it, I have to filter it as well, blah blah blah. I'm charging you £450 a month, so you pay you pay mine, I'll pay yours. You just make sure yours are more expensive than theirs.
Yes. And what do they say to that?
Well, they'll twist and turn a bit, but the point is that that if they can't argue it, because the water is poisonous. There's no getting around that. And you're saying you've delivered poisonous water to me. I have to treat it to make it drinkable. Right? Here are my charges for that.
Yes, and the lady I had on was Joy Warren. It was on a video recently, and she was talking about the fluoridation. And she says the water treatment companies cannot deny the government to put it in. They've been told they have to do it. Right. So they have to. So one can go to them and say, I don't want it, and that's where they're in a corner with that. But I mean, all the other stuff that they shove in, they don't have to do that.
Well, there's a video on my channel called Tax and Utilities Clinic, and at the end of the utilities part, I show the notice that I send to the water company, and I show the the letters from the South Essex and whatever water company with the list of ingredients.
Ah, right, brilliant. Well, we'll get the we'll put all the details on the your channel and stuff, so people can go and check that out. I'm just going to quickly do this one, if I may, Karen. I can't read Julia's writing. It might be Finky Stinkers, might be the name of the person, but thank you for this, or I should say man or woman, of course. I have 2 birth certificates, one in red and one in black. The latter has no signatures of my parents. I also have the QSIP of the one in red ink. Where do I secure the remedy? That's an interesting question. Who's going to go for that?
Could you repeat that?
Yeah, of course. I have 2 birth certificates, one in red and one in black. The latter, i.e. the black one, has no signatures of my parents. I also have a QSIP of the one in red ink. I'm not quite sure what QSIP stands for. I hear it a lot, and I probably ought to know that. Where do I secure the remedy? I don't know what you're seeking. I suppose.
They're looking for equitable relief and alternative provisions, as we are the surety trustee with legal possessory title in bankruptcy to the private banking cartel as the Bank of England. So it's neither a bank, and it's nothing to do with England. Like the Federal Reserve is not federal, and it's not a reserve as such. So there's a belief that the birth certificate can be exchanged for such Treasury direct accounts, and equitable relief is the term I would use for alternative provisions. So the certificates of birth for your person, because man is not registered, it's an event in my opinion, and so there is an event happening effectively at the General Registry Office. So later down the line, under the SETA KV Act, there is a few of them. There's 3. Look at Pope Boniface 1300 and something, and forwards convocation, Attorney Regis. Sorry, Donnelly.
Yes, 2008. It was 12. Pope Boniface. Sorry, interrupted.
Yeah, so there's a 1307 Unum Sanctum. There's the convocation, Attorney Regis, the 1533 CQV, the 1666 CQV when the prodigal son should have returned and didn't on the 6th of June 1666, and then the 1707 Seta KV, Sesta KV, French for this life, something is it translates to. So when we speak of trust, fiduciary capacity, bankruptcy, banks, England, intrinsic value, things like it's a deep macabre subject, to be fair, but the long and the short of it is there's a long version of the certificate and a short version depending on your age, when you was born, then the different styles and formats and fonts, but you are looking to exchange that. The QSIP number, financial terminology, we look at the Securities Exchange Commission, the World Bank, such as the banks, the World Securities Exchange, the World Bank, the IMF, Basel, Switzerland. There is the Vatican's own primary trust that was split up into other bank accounts. I've done work on this, and I did find a bank account with my person's name on that was formatted with bank account 8 digits, was the national insurance number minus the letters, 6 numbers. The year that David turned 16 to 1990, so if we take the 19 away, use the 94 for instance. That wasn't the year, but the number from the 6 numbers from the national insurance number prefixed with the 94 made 8 numbers. I did a search on this was the White Hats, Heather and Tucci giraffe back in the day, 10-15 years ago, and we secured some bank accounts with the Royal Bank of Scotland in Church Street, attached them to a merchant banking, and I'm not going to tell much more because it's not for now, but there are people out there and there's a belief out there that there is our claim of right to the country's mineral reserves, and this is where the alleged credits remedy would come from, because there's no gold in the country, there's no intrinsic value behind the money, everything's been sold, we're using promises to pay, debts to pay debt. So in a nutshell, I haven't got the answer, but it's a lot of work, and you would need to get yourself in a specialised group. You're asking for something which you don't understand and you haven't got any knowledge in, but you believe there is remedy. So it's a lot of work, and it's getting in those niche groups, bespoke groups, and not just people that believe, because that's a cult. When we believe something and we don't know and we blindly follow, then we're in a cult. Yes, we need to have first-hand knowledge, facts of the matter, and when people tell you something, ask them for proof. Like, again, the proof of the claim. Oh, you're saying that, are you? Well, let's see. Where did you get that from? From what publication? Go further. Don't just go with hope and blind faith, because often it's futile.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Karen. Question. Next question.
Next question. So from Zen Johnson, he's asked before. His question. He says their own legislation admits that Parliament is not sovereign. Their acts can only bind Parliament, not the people. So if acts don't apply to us, what do we do when the tax man calls?
So in Matthew there is teachings of a trust, and to do with Jesus changing the names has just been written in the chat there as well. So there's, when we say the Bible is a biblical book it's a commercial book of remedy, somewhere in Matthew, if you search it, use the key search words Jesus, fish, gold coin, Matthew, and you'll see there is connotations of payment being given for tax to the taxman. It's got the taxman in it, it's incredible. The same words that are used then are still used now. I thought certain words were just modern words, but Jesus getting angry when he found the money changers in the church and had to kick them out. Not many times, that this.
Oh, you've switched yourself onto mute by mistake.
Gets angry. Thank you, Richard. So again, there's the connotations in there, but again, it's the HMRC are one of the biggest boys alongside, companies, corporations to fight, and you would need to know your substance and your form and get it right to be able to. You're looking right in bankruptcy. You're looking to effectively effect payment, because we're using promissory notes from the bank, or you're using plastic cards that are the property of credit card companies. It's a Bailey-Baylor relationship. Bailey relationship, Baylor in trust terms again, which to do with property and rights and credits and promises. Research Professor Richard Werner, but it's a W, but it's German, so it's Werner, Werner. Look for Renegade Inc. on RT News, and you will find on YouTube disclosure about money, finance. Get in touch with the Bank of England. It's not a bank and nothing to do with England, but ask them for full disclosure on the currency, which is legal tender. So again, when we talk of Admiralty Maritime, current sea, the sea is water, it has a current. Etymological wordplay. I've resisted the word salad, but you're going to get some for now, quick and fast. A river in the wild has a bank. The banks are made of mud. The water flows with the direction of the banks. The banks control the flow of the currency. So it sounds macabre and weird. Let's have some entertainment, feeling under pressure a little bit, but you need to know your stuff, and you need to be prepared to fight and hold them to account. And these are the ways that these institutions are set up. It didn't happen overnight. And as the British Empire and Constitution demised and countries got their independence and people asked for their money back, gold back, when you borrow money, you have to pay it back. But if you've got nothing to pay it back with, then this perpetual debt system we're in, it's us, that's our sweat equity, which then, is the value as such. So I'll yield there. Perhaps Dave's going to go on.
Right. Well, all I was going to say is that legislation isn't binding on you. Okay. Legislation is not law. Right. It has no effect on you unless you agree to it. Okay. Which is why every time, that somebody wants to sort of bring a charge against you, they will ask you to agree to it. You might not recognize it as them asking you to agree to it, but a lot of people have already know this. But when a policeman stops you and says, "I'm going to charge you for doing 50 and a 30, do you understand?" Right. Well, the moment you say yes to that, well, you've agreed that the charges are valid and that they have authority over you, because the word understand actually legally, in legalese, means to stand under, to agree to be bound by, to consent to. So you've consented to the legislation, and you've agreed that the charges have merit, and so on and so on. So they will ask you, and other ways of asking is asking for your ID. As soon as you offer your ID, now you've accepted the charges. Yeah, there's so many different ways you can be fooled. It's also why I don't really like advocating people going into court, because there are so many pitfalls, so many ways you can be trapped. Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay.
The whole thing fundamentally revolves around, why do we have law at all? Why is there law? Why is there any jurisdiction? If there was just one person living on this plane of Earth or planet, whatever your view is on this, we wouldn't need any law. It's when you've got more than one person, then there has to be fairness, and that's why there is a system of law. And so the initial, when Dave talks about the Bible being a book of commerce, the 10 Commandments set out the first laws, the first set of rules that we're all to live by. And then if you look at the New Testament, they were then condensed into, like, fundamentally, Jesus came in with the new covenant, which was that you love God with all your heart, and you love your neighbours as if it was yourself, which is really the basis of the first 10 commandments. So when God created these 10 rules for us to all live by, they can then be furthermore condensed into do no harm, loss or injury. But there's a really interesting thing about the difference between law and the spirit of law. And again, I'll bring it back to the Bible, because the Bible, there's the story of the adulteress, and the religious groups brought this adulteress to Jesus, and the idea was that she needed to be stoned. That was part of the law. That was the punishment for committing adultery in those days. But Jesus said, well, okay, maybe she should be stoned, but the person who's going to do that should be any of you that have not sinned, because that's where the spirit of law comes in. It's the wisdom of treating people equally. And that equity, that equality, doesn't just come from the set of rules. It also comes from a place of, well, if you've never done anything wrong, then you're in a position to judge.
Oh, wow. Donna Lee, I'm so amazed. That is excellent. That's bang on. Yeah, let he without sin cast the first stone is an example of equity within the Bible. I think it's within John, what you're quoting there. So clean hands, the clean hands doctrine. Yeah, so he without sin. So that's an example of equity within the Bible. Again, codified here to show, persons with God, there is no respect of persons. So law, as I said, with Answer Coolis, Harry Dunn, certain other aspects of public domain, stories of public interest, the politicians that lie and don't seem to be held to account, bankers crashing the economy, not going to prison. There's a lot of things that are sidestepped there, and that's because of their titles and their positions as well.
This all comes from a question of who gives them authority to make these rules up for us, and where does jurisdiction come from? The situation that we currently find for people like the panelists and the people on this show, and people that are probably tuning into this show, comes from a question about who has authority over us. And if we're not doing any harm, loss or injury, then no one's got authority over me. I'm sovereign. I'm responsible for myself, whether that goes right or that goes wrong. However, once my jurisdiction steps into the jurisdiction of somebody else, if I do wrong to somebody else, then I expect punishment. Okay, I can expect punishment because that's where equity comes in, because we've all got a right to live without being wronged.
That's okay. That's really good because you've segued into a question here from Mark Shepherd. He says, I'm in county court in 2 to 3 weeks' time. Should I walk in and not give them jurisdiction over me? I have claimed my name all in lowercase, or should I play the game and give jurisdiction?
Well, I'm going into court tomorrow, and I was in court about a week ago because of this fake warrant that they've had over me. And I could have gone in with all kinds of documentation, because we wrap ourselves up in this legal world of paperwork, okay? Well, I'm not 2-dimensional, I'm 3-dimensional. So I didn't go in there with loads and loads of and I hate paperwork. So I went in and I just spoke my truth. And for me, I'm going to do that again tomorrow. I'm going to say I'm going to go in. I've got nothing to lose tomorrow because I'm in a position where all I need to do is to just go in there and say what I've got to say on my mind. It's my one opportunity to speak to these magistrates, and I'm going to speak straight from the heart. I'm just going to say to them, what's happened to me because of the legislation over the last 6 months of my life has completely turned my life round. And I've been punished beyond all recognition for what you're alleging that I've done, yet there is no victim. And I'm just going to say to them that I expect them to drop any and all charges that they have got against me. And if it works, it works.
Well, good luck with that, Donna Lee. Be interested to know how that goes. Question here from Zen Johnson, he's asked a number of questions, but this one relates to a question that we had last week or the week before. I can't remember now, and that's to do with council tax. So he's just asking, do you think, panel, that saying you hold religious meetings once a week in your house gets you out of council tax? Is there any evidence of people doing this, and is rather than just hearsay?
I've got this one. Right, there is something within their legislation, in their rules, that state that if you have got a space that will hold, I think it's X number of chairs, then yes, you can say that you hold religious meetings and you will get an exemption under their set of rules. But only do that if you do it, because if you don't, you're lying, and if you're lying, then you're not coming to any situation with clean hands. Don't use excuses for to do something, to get away with doing something just for the sake of not paying. If you are genuinely, honestly using your facilities for religious reasons, then use their rules to be exempt from making that payment.
Right.
Is it prayer room? May I say prayer room or something like that comes to mind? Is that not what it was? No?
I think you've got to have like a space to have 22 people, and you've got to be agreeing that you're holding religious meetings on a regular basis. Well, that's fine. That's giving a concession to those people that use that space if you want to operate in that system. Personally, I would just not be paying my council tax because there's no obligation to do so. That's a better reason not to pay your council tax. Don't be paying it because there's no obligation and there isn't a contract unless they can produce it. They use terminology with a council tax, so in fact, I've got my council taxes for a T-shirt on at the minute, and I don't want to sort of. What I would do is direct people to this website, which is www.counciltaxfraud.co.uk. There's a 30-minute documentary on there which will tell people why they shouldn't be paying council tax. But it's a choice. If you want to do it, go ahead and do it. But don't lie and say, oh, I use my house for religious reasons, because lying is lying. And somewhere, in some jurisdiction, eventually, you're going to get caught out.
And I think it's fair to say that if we're fighting, maybe fighting's not the right word, but if we're pushing back against a corrupt system, we should be much more honourable than the others and not be corrupt ourselves.
Totally.
Yeah. So I would also add that, the obvious thing is that you're using their rules, their concession. So at any time they can change that rule. Yeah.
Right.
So if say, 1,000 people hear this broadcast and then go off and claim, religious exemption, they'll change that pretty quick when they realize people are using it. So yeah. So again, best way is to actually confront it and deal with it head on.
Just challenge the authority in the first place. That's where what we have to do. And again, I know we spoke earlier about beliefs, but when 68 million people in this country believe what we're trying to say, no one will be paying council tax. It all comes down to the confidence of knowing who we are. That, to me, is the fundamental argument here. When you know that you've got unalienable, God-given rights, then when someone comes to impinge on those rights, the question is, what jurisdiction have you got over me? What authority have you got to exert your will over me?
This is really interesting. And let me just away from the chat for a second, and ask the panel, each of you, because you're doing all of this and you're advising people, and you come here on the show, etc. Do you think that any other time there have been so much interest in this information than at the moment?
I would say there was a time when there was a lot more interest. That was between about 2008 and 2013, with the Free Man on the Land movement, and there was, thousands and thousands of people all looking into this, and that we had several kind of hubs that we would congregate on, and we're all sharing information and getting successes at the same time. So yes, back then there was something going on, and then it died a death because the system put in agents and what have you to get people arguing with each other, and then they got rid of all our hubs, and it kind of died a death. But it never went away. But in the background, people kind of were evolving the way we kind of handle these things, and as soon as this COVID business and whatever came along, and people started to realize that we were being trapped by law, and it's basically made a comeback, should we say.
And do you think that they can close it down again?
Well, they can't close it down because essentially we're using their system against themselves. Right? Before we were, during the Free Man on the Land thing, we were saying common law, we're standing under common law, and they were ignoring us essentially. But our bread and butter back then was the conditional acceptance. So now we've honed it to the point where we're using their legislation against them, and they end up in a bind where they can't literally, they get tied up with their own legislation and they can't get out of it.
Someone said a few weeks ago, people have asked this question and said, "Oh, well, you're one of those free men on the land," and it's like, well, what do you mean we're a free man on the land? Isn't everybody free? Isn't that how you're born? You're born free. Why should we justify why we're free? What we are seeing is a system, the whole money, religion and politics thing is just an illusion. And we put our energy into these things. We feed that beast. And we're in a system where the system is getting greedier, it's getting more power hungry, and it's trying to take more and more control. And what we need to start looking beyond is not just what's going on in the natural, that we are in a spiritual war at the moment. And it's the spirit behind the system that we have got to fight against, the corruption and the evil. I think, I come from this as a perspective as a Christian, and everyone talks about the full armour of God. And for me, the armour of God is that we're not fighting against principalities and powers. We are fighting against darkness in, dark rulers in dark places. And where for me this fight is growing and call it a fight, but where this is growing, this movement is growing, is that more and more people are becoming conscious of this, and they are seeing the system for what it is.
You mentioned, and sorry to interrupt, David. I'll come back to you in 1 second, and I just want to. Well, I'll go. No, because this will change the subject. Go ahead, David.
Ephesians to Donna Lee, the armour of God, to be precise. Yeah, and I hope I haven't insulted you with my analogies and the way that I said about the KJV 1611 authorised version. It's only that book that will get you remedy, lawful remedy on that. Thank you then, blessing, bliss. And I remember, thank you for this, Richard, because it's important, the Tiananmen Square tank man. I was about 9 and I just saw this guy with his carrier bags and he was stood in front of a tank. I was a child and I was like, what? He's got no chance. And the man opened the lid of the tank and he got, you all remember, you've got to be old enough. If you're not, go and search Tiananmen Square tank man. Or it might not be Tiananmen Square, it's a tank man. You'll find him. Legendary. Yes. And then it was the 80s, born 78, so not too much memory of the 80s, but 88-10. Thatcher, Scargill, miners, poll tax, the music, the illegal raves, the gathering, the criminal justice. They said you can't go in a field and have fun. Oh no, we can't have that. Black people, white people, Chinese people, English people. Oh, what's going on? Smoking weed, having beer, having a party, harming nobody. We're not having that. No, you're going to overthrow us. What are we going to do? The Criminal Justice Act, repetitive beats. You can't have, and bureaucracy. So there was a time before the free man on the land, John Harris, and what David touched on. Yes, here it comes. Inspirational. Yeah, we need to get back to that. And as one family, as one creed, as one seed. And I yield there. I've said enough. Thank you. Brilliant.
Thank you, David. I just had to go and quickly find that picture because it is iconic. We're running out of time. We've only got about 10 minutes or so left. We mentioned about Freeman on the Land. This is from Born to Be Free, and this is aimed at Dave. So I just, if you could give an answer to this would be grand. He says, Dave, I've used your PCN notice displayed in a window. I'm on notice for using your words. I've now received a charge certificate. What do I do with this?
Okay, I don't understand. He's on notice for using my words.
That's just what he says. I don't. I don't know. Obviously, don't know any more than that. I'm on notice for using the word. On notice from whom? I suppose we need to know, don't we?
And what's it in connection with? And so I'm guessing it's my car notice. Which basically says, if you issue anything to this my private car, then I charge this much. If you clamp it, I charge this much. If you tow it away, I charge this much per hour, and so on, so on, so on. That's just my fee schedule for doing anything with my car. And if you get a parking ticket, for instance, right? So the parking ticket is based on this thing called an adhesion contract. An adhesion contract is a kind of take it or leave it type contract. So somewhere there'll be a notice that says, notice, if you park here, you agree to the following charges or whatever. And so if you park there, it's deemed that you've accepted their contract. Okay, so now you're bound to pay. Now, you put the notice in your car window, that's your adhesion contract to say, if you stick anything on my car, this is how much I charge. And you make sure your charges are more than their charges. And then you get into that, they'll write to you and say, okay, you owe us 60 quid. And you write back saying, great, I'll accept your 60 quid, but you owe me 150 quid. So pay us 60 quid and, pay us 150, I'll pay you back the 60.
Yes. It's like a poker game in a way, isn't it? I'll raise you some.
It is because you're using the same legislation and the same contract law as them, and so they can't say, well, what you're doing is not right, because you can turn around and say, well, what you're doing is not right then.
Right, exactly.
Excuse me, everyone. One poignant thing to note here: notices rely upon a doctrine. There's many doctrines that the law, the secular law, the various denominations of law get their authority from, and equity. Public notices, doctrine of notices. So at the heart of equity lies the doctrine of notices. So research what the doctrine of notices is. You may have all seen a lamppost in your time with a bit of paper on, some tie wraps on it saying planning permission, you've got the right to object. So research what notices, public notices are, and the doctrine of notices, and take it from me, and you need to research and search why at the heart of equity lies the doctrine of notices, and what jurists said that, and why they said that, and what you're doing there, and you understand what you're doing. So when you use an instrument, and you're doing instrument not necessarily under contract law or a particular other type of law, but you need to actually inner and overstand the entire instrument and process, and the governing authority of which you need to rely on to enforce that. You probably are bang on and right, but the system will try to test you and say, okay, they've probably got a template, they've probably downloaded this, we'll try it. And they will, one of the maxims of commercial law, when I said please research the 10 maxims of commercial law and the biblical precepts next to them, he that does not assert his right is viewed as having no rights. I yield.
Brilliant. Listen,
when you're dealing with corporations, just as a quick note, when you're dealing with corporations, all corporations are there to do business and do money. So if you are getting a corporation trying to enforce anything on you through these adhesion contracts for the sake of money, then just do better business. Make sure that you've got a contract, like Dave's saying, you have your contract, they have theirs, and then you'll do that negotiation.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, we've only got 10 minutes left. Karen, it's been a really interesting evening, hasn't it?
Yeah, another one. I can't believe we're week 7 into this. It's been really interesting, Richard. And I just wanted to make a point when you said, has something like this happened before? And allegedly David's saying, yeah, about freeman of the land. What I'm noticing is like mainstream are taking an interest, because I've been contacted twice this week, one by Sky News and one by somebody in Durham University. And
wow.
They want discussions. People are obviously a little bit wary of that, because we know things can be manipulated, especially when you talk about Sky TV. But it's very interesting that the other side are taking interest in what's going on with the freedom sovereign movement. So I think that's a really important thing to mention.
Can I just say something there, Karen? Again, when they get, because I've been involved in past lives where I've seen some television programs being put together, and when they show an interest, essentially that's a really good thing. But what happens is that they'll do the program, then they'll manipulate it, they'll cut it, edit it, and they'll put their view across. So if anyone's going to get involved with the mainstream media, then again, back down to the idea of doing business and contract, is that when you agree to do these interviews or programs with them, that you agree and put your own terms and conditions there before these are broadcast. You've got the opportunity to edit them before they're broadcasted out to the general public, because then you'll get to see how they portray you.
Yeah. No, thank you for that, Donnelly, because also Gary Stills, who was on last week, he's actually written out a contract and said, if this goes ahead, this is what you want to have them sign beforehand. Because obviously, they can edit it, they can make us look like idiots, conspiracy theorists and stuff like that. And whether I go ahead, I will with the Durham University one. Sky TV, I don't know, because we know who owns Sky. But I'm just happy that they are interested. If it's genuine, it might not be. Question everything.
It's not genuine, because they will want to spin it as you being mentally ill or needing something in your life to believe in, and being a conspiracy theorist. That's because of the interest and the level of people using this now. Because I think it's Birmingham that's now, they're all bankrupt because nobody's paying council tax. Yeah. Because of the level of people using this, they now have to put on the mainstream some way to debunk it, some way to warn people off. You know, they'll probably roll out somebody who's gone to prison, or they'll get an actor to pretend that they did this and they ended up going to prison, so that they'll frighten the muggles from looking at it.
I would certainly back what Dave said there, because I mean, I used to have a children's television program back in the past and was involved with TV, and I can absolutely tell you 100%. They will spin it, as Dave said. I was contacted some years ago now by a Channel 4 program because I used to do juggling and unicycling and lie on a bed of nails, and they wanted to get some old acts who had been at the top of their game years and years ago, and they contacted me, and it was a ridicule show, and they wanted to show contortionists and people like that and show them how they are now so that they could ridicule them. I just told them where to go. I said, no thanks whatsoever. I mean, it was ridiculous. But that's mainstream television. I wouldn't touch it with a barge pole.
I think we've got to be very, very careful. But I mean, we've stirred them up a little bit. Obviously, they've always been there. But I think it's interesting that they're coming and asking questions. I just think that
shows that they're worried, doesn't it?
Well, it's a sign. Yeah, it's a sign that we are having an impact. But the other thing I just wanted to say, well, a couple of things actually, is about Gary and other people have mentioned dominions and shires. I was talking to somebody in Australia, Barry, and they are creating sheriffs, because that's where the word shire comes from, a shire reef, which I didn't know. I was learning all sorts of stuff, and they've got this common law thing going on down in Australia, and we can all become deputies and create this parallel system that we're talking about. And I think that's really something that we should focus on, especially when we've got these panelists with large followings, large groups of people that are, doing it for the greater good. And I just wanted to mention that. So, I think we are moving forward in a very positive way, and I'm really happy to be part of it.
So we're coming pretty much to the end of the show. Just give a chance to everybody to promote what's going on and things that are happening. And I would urge everybody not to be obstropulous.
Yeah, go on, Rich. God bless you.
I've had to get that word in again. It's such a brilliant word. So let's start with Dave. Allegedly, Dave, have you got any appearances of books, websites, and all of that we can promote and find out more about what's going on in your world?
Okay, so I'm on a tour at the moment. I think I'm in Norwich on Sunday, I think it is, and then I'm going up to the Midlands. So details on my website, allegedlydave.com. If you wanted to get hold of the traffic offences toolkit, or the council tax toolkit, or the NIP, notice of intended prosecution toolkit, just give me a shout. Dave@allegedlydave.com.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Dave. Donnelly.
Okay, so two things that I've been involved in recently, which is council tax, www.counciltaxfraud.co.uk, which I hope is a toolkit for people who want to learn more about why they shouldn't be paying it. And for those of us who want to promote it, then there's a second website, www.ctfc2024.org, which is a campaign site where people can go on and buy T-shirts like the one I'm wearing, and yellow boards where they can attract attention for why council tax is fraudulent. All of the materials that are on there are sold at cost plus carriage. There's no profit in there, but it's basically for anyone that wants to campaign and raise awareness. Every time the physical product is purchased, it comes out with 100 leaflets sending anyone that's attracted to why is council tax fraud, and you can direct them to the second website. So there's those two things. And just one final point, and I said this to you, Karen and Richard, before I came on, that I sat last night and worked out this is a piece of paper. It's 210 millimetres by 297 millimetres. And if that was to represent the whole of our population in the United Kingdom, that little dot there represents the size of government. So in terms of our whole population, we are governed by something that small. But but we believe that it's got power over us, and that is not the case. That is a complete and utter case of the tail wagging the dog. They only have the jurisdiction and the authority that we give them.
And that looks like a small tail as well.
It is a very small tail.
David.
Hello. Yes, the place there is our private educational portal. We're not solicitors, we are teachers, and we teach and we help, and we are happy to entertain you for a gift or compensation or donation of 12 promises, pounds, credits, a GB currency per year. It's £1 a month. It's as low as we can go. We're not running a business. Our business is private, and yeah, I'd appreciate support on that. My YouTube channel has just been reset, so all the 1,000 and something videos that we've amassed, myself, Kevin, Anders and Albert and the fam over the last 10 years are all public access. So Indie and Glow, INDIGLOW. You've got the links for me in the chat for that. The homepage has got a link to the Facebook public trust we have. Clean Hands and In Honour, so we've got a public Telegram chat. You can find us. I've put a link in the chat just now, and I'll entertain anybody publicly and privately. We encourage working together. I'm eager to work with the guests. I want to say thank you to Karen for facilitating this. You are an angel, a superstar. I'm really appreciative of the chance to mix with good souls like yourselves, Donnelly and allegedly Dave. It's been an honour, a privilege, blessings, bliss. Thank you. It's I'd like to do something again, link up, support you. If you send me links or you get in contact with the homepage, you make contact with me. I will promote and support what you're doing for free. You know, scratching each other's backs, so we'll network and commute that way. What we do for our others, we do for ourselves. To, you know, like what you said there, Donnelly, if we followed these simple rules, we wouldn't need police, courts, legislation, and we'd be in a better place. But I'll leave it there. Richard, and thank you to you. The first time I was on this channel, it was an epic fail. I'm in a bad place in my life. I hadn't slept much. I've got a lot of excuses, but that video I was quite embarrassed about, and I haven't watched it back, but I've heard the feedback. So I hope tonight was something for all, and I've really enjoyed it. Lots of love, and thank you again.
It's been an absolute pleasure to have you here, David. Indeed. We are running completely out of time. So, Karen, what have you got going on in your world?
Briefly, I don't know if you're going to see that, but it's about our roadshow, Richard. I know you can't attend all of them, but either you and I, or you or I, will be at some of them. So I just want people to start putting these in their diary. If you contact me, I just put it in the chat, but I didn't see it come up. Kizzy63, KIZZI63 at pmprotonmail.me, and then you can find out how to get tickets for these events. So the roadshow is going to start off at Hope in East Sussex. That's on the 9th of June, and so far we'll have Tony Rose, Chris Coverdale, David Edelman, and some others. I've yet to fill that one. And then we're going to move over to Glastonbury. Eli's got something going there on the 26th of May. He's got Pete the Hat, David Edelman again, Martin Geddes and Dean of Buxton. Then we're heading up north, and we've got the one that Dean has done here. So on the 23rd of June in Buxton, the venue to be confirmed nearer the time. Richard's coming to that, and I'll be there. And then we will also have Callie Spell, David Edelman, Sovereign Pete and Dean from Buxton. And then the last one on the 21st of July in Hull. We've got allegedly Dave, Gary Steels, Pete Wilson, Sovereign Pete, Callie Spell, so a whole bunch. So get in touch with me if you want tickets, you want further information. This will be like our roadshow where you can talk to the panelists, get answers, and also meet them and get onto their websites, because these shows just gives you a little idea of what's, what can be done, but you need to take it further by getting onto these Clever Clogs websites for further information. Cool.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Karen. And big thanks to everybody who has come to watch. Big thanks to Julia, who has been passing me copious note in handwriting, not just copying and paste. So she's actually sitting over there just off camera.
Can we see that, Richard?
There she. Well,
no.
Come.
I've got her hand. Come on,
No,
Julia.
she's coming. She's coming.
Give us a twirl. Give us a twirl, Anthea,
Oops.
Julia. Bless you. Lovely
Hello.
to see you.
God bless.
thank
I'm
you.
here now.
She can't hear because of the earphones. But anyway, yeah, no, thank you. We're going to go and have something to eat now. But we'll try and gather if somebody can gather all that information, and so I can put it in the description. If it's not there immediately, come back in a day or so's time, and I'll try and get it into the description of this video so that you can see it there. It won't be handwritten, hopefully just copied and pasted. But thank you so much to everybody coming. Thank you for the people who did make those donations. I think we made £42.22, which we can
Two
put
pizzas.
towards, yes, 2 pizzas for our charity. We need to sort of nominate a charity or something. But anyway, big thanks to the panel, big thanks to Karen, big thanks to Julia, and big thanks to the audience. Thank you for coming along. We'll let you go now. Take care. Thanks for watching. We've got one more show in the diary, I think, Karen, haven't we?
We've got one more next Thursday. Don't know who the panelists are yet, so if you want to be on the panel, get in touch with me. Again, kizzy63@pm.me. I'm happy to keep these going, Richard, as long as you're happy. So if there's a demand, we can talk about that.
Fantastic. That sounds absolutely brilliant. So there we are. There's our panelists. Thank you so much for coming along. Till next time.